There are a few fictional characters that have such dedicated fan bases, so no matter what they do, they will be defended. A character can murder a child on screen, and these fans will find some way to excuse it or justify it. While this is certainly not unique to the realm of fiction, I don't have the time to deal with the much worse real-world problem. Now, I'm not referring to people obsessing over and idolizing villain characters, for as annoying as those fans may be at times, they're engaging with the text that is present. I'm referencing those that will see a character do something truly morally reprehensible and go out of their way to say that such an act is not actually that bad. This can lead to some incredibly toxic moments where someone will go from a dedicated fan to defending slavery super quickly. On the opposite side of the same coin, you have fans of a franchise that have decided a specific character is irredeemable, not because of any real atrocity they committed, but because of some perceived slight that is actually not as big a deal as people make it out to be. Everybody finds some characters annoying or unlikable, but this is when, rather than just dislike a character, they need to say they have a good moralistic reason to dislike them. This usually happens to women, and what the fans claim they find egregious is usually either something as bad or far less sinister than something done by a character that they do like. There's probably some character that pops to mind right now, but the one I want to address today is somebody that is about to get a lot more popular when she gets her own TV show. Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, introduced by Brian Michael Bendis and Mike Deodato in 2016, with a pretty quick redesign by Ewing and Kevin Libranda. Riri was conceptualized as the new replacement for the recently deceased Tony Stark. Supposedly. Unless you've never read comics before, you'd immediately recognize Tony wouldn't stay dead for long. In fact, he returned to the title in less than 2 years, which is far less than his hiatus when Rhodey took up the helmet. People were less upset with Rhodey taking the mantle for several reasons. One, Tony was still alive, just dealing with his addiction. Technically, Tony was still alive this time around too, but people didn't know that. Like I said, death is a revolving door in the Marvel Universe, but change is easier to accept if you see the character leaving is getting help instead of ceasing to exist. 2, Rhodey was already an established character, whereas Riri was introduced as the new Iron Man. There are some who say they don't even mind a black teenage girl taking up the mantle, but they wished it was the already well-liked Lila Rhodes. I'll believe them, as it does make sense to build a character up first before giving them a legacy title. Still, 3, there were a lot of people who, were they old enough to have been reading Iron Man comics back in the 70s and 80s, would have been similarly incensed at Rhodey becoming Iron Man, because, as many would admit, they don't want to see people of color taking over roles originally held by white characters. John Walker, Arno Stark, Tim Drake, Barbara Gordon, Hal Jordan, Wally West, Warren Worthington, etc., they don't mind. But when it's people of color, and specifically black people, then it is forced diversity and ruining stories just to sell issues. Okay, you can see my old video about legacy heroes for more on that brand of hypocrisy, but there are those who are adamant they would have always been supportive of James Rhodes and Jon Stewart, and were the biggest supporters of Miles Morales and Duke Thomas. They say Riri is a special case because she has done something too egregious for her to be redeemable. As I have seen reiterated countless times as a valid reason to hate Williams specifically, allow me to show you her heinous crime. Be warned, this may not be for the faint of heart. Are you ready? She once, as a little kid, asked her teacher to tell her she couldn't do something. I'll give you a moment to recover from your shock. Riri, who is probably in 1st or 2nd grade here, stands up in the middle of quiet time to tell her teacher she wants to be a scientist when she grows up. The teacher responds that that's nice, but this confuses Riri. She expected the teacher to tell her to have more conservative expectations, similarly to how Mae Jemison was told she must mean she wanted to be a nurse when she was a little girl. The teacher responded that because of people like Jemison, there are now opportunities for young black girls in STEM, but Riri still wants to be challenged. Seeing she won't back down, the teacher relents and tells Riri she could never become Tony Stark, which is of course what Riri sets out to do. If you're a normal person with an understanding of how children talk, you're probably confused about why this would cause outrage. Well, as I've seen argued so many times, this supposedly shows that Riri is an aggressive, vindictive sociopath that wants to encourage racism and sexism in schools just so she can feed her superiority complex. If that seems like a stretch to you, you're not alone. I can't believe I'm going to defend Brian Michael, named his black character after the president of the Confederacy, Bendis' writing, in this one instance only, but this is not the behavior of somebody who likes racism and hates goodness. This is the behavior of a socially awkward kid who expected something to go one way and is confused when it goes the other. This is a realistic thing for a kid to do, and I'd know as a teacher. This doesn't make her a monster or someone yearning for bigotry. People really like to read aggression into black girls' faces. But this is just somebody who has read about black girls having been discouraged from being ambitious and is surprised that she isn't. And she's not asking to be challenged because she hates kindness or whatever, but because she wants a challenge, like a lot of really smart people do. When this is the centerpiece of an argument of why a character is a bad person, that they, as a 7-year-old or so, once asked a teacher to challenge them, you know they're grasping for straws. After all, these people don't mind stories being told about Tony Stark, who sold weapons of war, Wanda Maximoff, who sexually assaulted a man, Hank Pym, who beat his wife, Kitty Pryde, who regularly used the N-word, or any other of the countless characters that these fans realize can grow. No, it's just Riri, whose one scene from 5 years ago is their main complaint, that she is just too terrible of a character to use. Give me a break. Riri is not a terrible character. She's very similar to Tony, as she's a genius and pretty self-confident, but she's, at least to me, a lot more relatable. She's socially awkward, not from money, and hasn't fully learned how to be her own person. Yeah, she does make some mistakes. I think that is something that we want to see in our heroes. And she does say some things that she probably shouldn't, but she's a kid. She's still just a kid. It's hard to remember that under all of the responsibilities she takes and all of the adventures she had, but at the end of the day, she's a kid doing the best she can to be the best she can. And I take that over a boring cookie-cutter quip machine any day. But for most of the fans who hate Riri, they don't hate her because she replaced Tony, or because she was awkward as a child, or because she has made some mistakes throughout her career as a hero. No, they hate her because she is a black teenage girl, and they don't want to have a black teenage girl in a prominent position in a piece of media that they want to consume. I think it's time we stop giving Misogynoir a seat at the table.